And yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good to see you all. The focus of today's session is going to be around the AP piece, as an addition to the Pegasus offering. So we're going to talk around how the AI and the automated accounts payable is going to support you with reducing costs across your organizations. So we'll talk through the AP automation with Pegasus. We'll explain how this will help you with saving time and paper with the AI invoice processing. I can introduce you to how you can extend the AP automation piece to include the front end in terms of taking control of your supplier purchasing as well. I'll provide a live demonstration within the session. And then if you do have any questions as we go through, please feel free to kind of drop those into the chat, and we've got some time set aside at the end if it's all right to come to that Q&A as well. So in terms of the AP automation with Pegasus, how does it work? So the idea and the benefit is that AP automation resolves the key challenges that you may be experiencing with a manual accounts payable process. So that includes removing the keying of invoice data, any time consuming coding, and things like reconciling invoices against orders or chasing invoices for approval. So you can start your accounts payable automation journey very simply by emailing all of your invoices into a unique e-invoicing email address here. Any invoice type or format can be sent and accepted. So that's PDF, Word, Excel, paper scanned invoices, multiple pages, different languages or currencies are all supported within the AP automation. AP automation will then capture the header and line item data from your invoices, which is all powered by AI technology, which removes the manual keying of any invoice data into Pegasus that you are most likely doing currently. The software will then automatically perform duplicate invoice checking, supplier bank detail validation, which all supports with kind of reducing risk and increasing productivity, as well as things like default analysis coding and automatic matching of invoices back to purchase orders if that's applicable. Invoices can then be routed on a multi-tiered dynamic approval workflow based on any supply codes, cost centers, departments, suppliers or value thresholds, all to meet your organization's approval control needs. And then once those invoices have been approved, they're then transferred in real time across into Pegasus, including a link back to the invoice, which is looking to streamline your process end to end. So this will help to save time and paper and reduce costs by firstly removing 100% of paper from the process. So alleviating storage costs and considerations and making things such as audit far more straightforward. So you've got access to all of your invoices within one centralized repository in one centralized place. You can save significant time processing and storing invoices, managing queries, chasing approvals with this extension to Pegasus. We've got that dynamic approval workflow and things like approver alerts and nudges, so ensuring your authorization routes are complied with and also that you've got full visibility. It's quick and easy to approve for approvers and also provide any comments around invoice exceptions. And we're looking at processing invoices for pennies, not pounds. So you can process an invoice for as little as 40 pence compared to that £14.50, which is a widely reported cost for handling a traditional paper invoice. And you're also getting that visibility, control, and removing that paper again. You can reduce the risk level that your business is exposed to by automating those checks that I've touched on. So those additional validations around duplicate invoice checking, bank detail validation, all essential when looking at preventing fraud. And also we can look at automating the purchasing process as well. So we can look at the integrated buying with any preferred online supplier websites and looking at pre-approval of spend before it's made, and increased automation around the AP side because of the introduction of invoice to order matching. So just touching on that kind of integrated purchasing piece with suppliers. So you can start the automation journey from an accounts payable perspective at the top end of the process. So if you do buy online with suppliers, you'll be able to provide visibility of this spend across your business, automatically creating purchase requests, having those routed for approval before that PO is raised or order completed. So when you combine purchasing and AP automation, there are additional time savings for finance because the invoice can be automatically captured and matched back to the order. That leaves finance and AP really focused on dealing with only the exceptions that fall outside of your predetermined tolerances, and invoices can be automatically routed for additional approval if or when required. So with real-time visibility of all of those transactions by status, access to comments, timeline, again, this is streamlining end-to-end and removing manual tasks for both budget holders, but also for finance. So without further ado, I will jump into a demo and I will share what we're talking about with you. So I'm just going to bring this up on screen here. So what you're looking at here is the AP automation solution. The view that the user that's logging into AP automation will have will be dependent on the permissions that they've been allocated, their role within the organization, information that's relevant to what they're doing. So you can see that if we are doing integrated purchasing within this system, then we've got access to look at orders, look at managing our existing invoices, and then we've got suppliers and configurations, so those kind of admin functions within the system as well. So if we start with a front end example, if we look at what happens when we're raising a purchase request with an online supplier. So we've got Amazon Business here. This view would be tailored based on the online suppliers that you're looking to buy with. But if I click on Amazon Business as an example, I'll be taken from this system directly out to my Amazon Business account. I'm logged directly in. Any preferential prices or discounts that you have associated with your online supplier account are all inherited. And then from here, I just start to build out my basket. So I need to decide the items that I want to request. So I'm going to order some paper. Let's just order some pens as well, just some office stationery, keep it nice and simple. And then once I'm happy with the contents of my basket, I can go through and view, proceed to checkout. And then what you'll see is that instead of automatically checking out online, I will be prompted to submit this order for approval. So what this means is that the contents of that basket will be pulled back through into our system, and a purchase request will be automatically populated for me. So everything in that basket has been pulled through down to the item codes, descriptions, obviously our costs and quantities. And we've also got some coding that's been defaulted for us as well. So where this is linked directly with Pegasus, we've got some of our project codes, our cost centers departments allocated. We're missing a supplier type up here, so I can very quickly allocate my supplier type. And then I've got a red flag here, which is just prompting me that I also need to make sure that my supply code is set. So I can use this quick actions tool, select supply code, select from the codes that I'm using. I know that I just want to code this to stationery. I can allocate that across all of my lines or across specific lines if I'm coding at line level. Click to apply. And now this request is ready to be submitted out for approval. Based on the pre-existing defaults, you can see we've got tax code set against the supplier, so we can set those defaults at supplier level. But if I also need to make any changes, so actually this is a shipping line where VAT isn't applicable, I can go into that existing line and very quickly update and save. Once I'm comfortable with the request, I can select my predefined approval workflow to submit that out for approval. So if I am purchasing online within this system, I've got a save tray which shows me requests that I've started but haven't yet finished. I've got the submitted tray here, which gives me visibility of requests that I have raised that are currently out in the business for approval and who they're currently with. If for any reason I have changed my mind or want to make any changes to that request, until that becomes a fully approved order that's been sent out to the supplier, I can recall that back to the save tray to make any changes. So the approver's experience is the approver will receive an email notification if that's what you choose to have configured, and they will be There's a link within that email which will take them through to log into the system. And they'll be able to see here they're awaiting approval tray. So this is specific to the user that's logged in, and in this case the purchase requests that are awaiting their approval. So we can see this request that we just raised with Amazon Business is just there. And when the approver logs in, they see all the very same information that's been populated on that request. So they can see the line item detail, the coding, any other additional information. And they've got two buttons here. They can choose to approve that request or they can deny that request. If they deny, that goes back to the person that raised that original request with the commentary so that they can undertake the appropriate action, or they can choose to approve with a comment. And I might just say, that's fine. Fine by me. Click to approve. And then that will either send that request on to additional approvers if there are additional approval steps required, or actually in this case, if I go into our approved tray, you can see it's landed at the top here, and that's now a fully approved order. The benefit of the integration with the online suppliers is if I go through to documents and timeline, what you'll see is the full journey of this particular request. So for every transaction that is going through the system, we're building out that approval timeline, that audit trail. So you've got visibility of each document type, whether it's a purchase request or an invoice, which we'll come on to. But you can see the user that submitted the request, the date and time, the approval step that's been undertaken, by whom, again, date and time, the associated commentary, and you can see that this request has now become an order which has been issued electronically back to Amazon. So with an integrated supplier, that order's now gone back out to Amazon. We've provided Amazon with a unique purchase order reference number so that when the invoice or invoices start coming through, we can do the capture and matching back automatically as well. Just before we go into the AP side, the invoices side, I just want to touch on the config and the approval workflow piece, given it's a core part of the solution, whether we're looking at raising online requests or whether we're handling orders and getting our invoices approved within the system as well. So you can have as many workflows configured as you like, but if I go into our finance example, these can be built out with kind of single steps. So the approval is required to go to one individual, then another individual, or you can build these out in a slightly different way. So for example, you could add multiple users within one step of the approval workflow. That creates an approval group whereby both users or all users within that group will get a notification to say that there's a transaction that requires their approval. Because they've been configured in a group, only one of them needs to approve it in order to progress it on to the next step within the workflow. So that can be really handy. Another thing that's really useful is the ability to create here what we would call a simultaneous or parallel approval. So it might be that there are multiple people at the same level that need to approve something, in which case you want that transaction to go to all of them at the same time. They can approve their portion, and then once everyone's approved their portion, it can progress on to the next step. Or it might be that there are different reasons or different criteria surrounding the required approval. So for example, I can configure some criteria. I can set a condition. So I might say that for a particular supply code at header level, if it's equal to auditor's fees, then there's a particular user or group of users within the organization that need to see that. And you can build that out for a single supply code or a range of supply codes, or based on any other analysis that you're using within Pegasus that's relevant. So you can get really clever with it if you need to. Ultimately, the workflows can also be very straightforward. So something that we see very commonly is obviously a value threshold. So the thresholds within this system are net value is X or above, so they're a lower limit, but you can build that in and you can have as many value thresholds as you like, as relevant to your kind of internal delegation of authority within your organization. So if it's X or above, then this user needs to see it, and you can build that up over time for as many value thresholds as you need. Workflows are really easy to visualize, maintain, make changes to, and it's at this point in time here that if it's a request, that becomes a fully approved order that goes back to your online supplier. If it's an invoice, it's at this point in time that we're going to create that invoice within Pegasus for you as well. Okay, so just looking at the invoice side of things. So we talked through in the initial introduction in those slides, You're provided with an e-invoicing email address. You can provide that directly to your suppliers so that they're sending their invoices direct to the system for capture. Or if you've got a finance at existing inbox, you can create an email automation just to send those invoices through. If I click into the invoices area, the first tray that I will come to is the unprocessed tray. This is your AP operator, your finance team tray. This is when invoices have gone through the data capture, the AI tool, and they've been delivered down into the system ready for processing. So this is effectively your invoice in tray. The first thing that you'll see is that if you are raising any requests within the system with your online suppliers, you'll get a matching status if invoices are matching back to an order, or you can just process direct invoices that don't have to be related to an order either. We'll flag if we have identified a part match, so if the net value of the invoice is less than the original order, an overmatch where it's obviously over the original order, and if you are managing your orders within the system and there are suppliers, so for example you can see here we've got a no PO reference flag, but we might know that actually we do raise orders within this system for this particular supplier. I can quickly check and I can look for any open POs for that supplier, so I can quickly manually carry out that match so that I can get that invoice processed through the system as well. In this top scenario though, I will click into, we've got a nicely matched example here. So the first thing on an invoice is that you get a summary of the header and line item data. If I click here, this tab here, this shows me the invoice that's been received by the system, and this is the document that we've extracted the data from, or the AI has extracted the data from, and we're presenting that here to you. You can see in this case where it does match back to an order, I can click to view that order within the system. So as a finance user, I can quickly sense check back to the order that was raised and approved within this system. And you can see here, unable to check, but if you're holding bank details against your supplier record within Pegasus and that supplier is putting bank details on the invoice, then there will be that automatic check that's done for you, flagging any discrepancies. And then you can see all of the line items. So in this case, where the invoices come in and matched back to an approved order, you can see coding has been inherited. So everything's been pre-populated for me here, our tax code, cost center, department, project, etc. I've got some codes that I'm not using. I'm not using job codes here, so that's all right. Again, if I need to make any changes as a finance user, I might say actually that was coded slightly incorrectly. I'd like to make a change. I can use the quick functions to interact with that coding or fill in any missing coding. If you're processing what we would call direct invoices, so non-PO invoices, you can still have this defaulting configured. So if I click through to edit, what we're looking at here is a second screen, which just gives me a slightly different view of the data that we looked at on the first screen. So here I can see the invoice and the data. But for direct invoices, I've got the ability to apply supplier defaults. So from the very first invoice that you receive from a direct supplier, I can start to build out my defaulting. So it might be that I know that the tax code is always going to be a particular 20%. I know that this supplier only relates to a particular project or a particular supply code. So you can default as much as possible within the system and layer up that automation over time. So you're reducing the amount of manual touch points that you as AP users or finance users need to have with the invoices. In this example, my invoice is fully coded. If I wanted to add any comments before submitting this out for approval, I can do. But actually what we've set up within this system is, well, if the invoice matches back to an approved order, then we're comfortable that that can go straight into Pegasus. That's ready to be posted. No one else needs to look at that. So I've got this submit button here and I can see the available workflows for this user. So I'm going to submit this invoice through our matched workflow, which will effectively automatically approve, or there might be some criteria there which says, well, if it's over a certain value, then we do still want someone to check it. Or your invoice approval might be that you're sending it back to the person that ordered it, or a relevant department head, because you want them to confirm that they received the goods or services. So you can have those approval steps on invoices still as well if you need to. So again, we've got this concept of a submitted tray. So this shows me from an AP perspective, the invoices that are currently out in the business for approval. You can see who that current approver is. And then I won't go through another approval step because it looks exactly the same when you're approving an invoice, when you're approving a purchase request. And then what we have here is our approved order tray, which gives me effectively my archive of all of my approved invoices. And then once an invoice has been fully approved, these are just processing now, but you can see here what we have is a journal reference number. So that invoice is posting through in real time into your integrated Pegasus software, and we're pulling back that journal number. So if I just jump into one of these examples, what you'll then have for every invoice within the system is this completed approval timeline audit trail for your invoices as well. So which user, AP or finance, submitted the invoice for approval, who approved it, the date and time of that approval, any comments associated to that approval, and then the date and time it was posted through to Pegasus and the associated journal number as well. So you've got that completed audit trail for your invoices. It also means that at any point in time, if you're looking at your transactions within Pegasus and you want to reference back out to the AP system, to find a particular transaction, you can search by journal number. If I want to quickly view the invoice document, I can do so from this screen without even clicking in. And I can also use this universal search feature. So I can search by invoice number or supplier reference. So accessing those documents quickly is really straightforward. There's also a link that you can click on within the transaction in Pegasus that will take you back here so that you can view that invoice and the approval timeline as well. So maybe a little bit of a whistle-stop tour end to end, but hopefully that gives you a good flavour, a good reintroduction into the AP system, but also that integrated purchasing functionality and where that's relevant and how that might be relevant for your organisation. The approval workflow piece being really fundamental, but also just the ease of use in terms of removing any manual steps that you might currently be undertaking when handling invoices in and out of Pegasus. Okay.
Cool.
We will pause there to see if anyone has any questions.
I do actually have one. Somebody's just asked, what happens if to transactions waiting approval if one of the approvers is away?
Mm-hmm.
You know, they might be on holiday or something or sick.
Yeah, fab question. So there's the concept of an approval or an approver nominee within the system. So either an approver themselves, so if you know you're going on leave, same way as you'd set your out of office on your emails, you can log in, set your out of office and nominate another approver to approve your transactions while you're gone. If you're off sick, for example, and you haven't been able to do that, then an administrator or a finance user can go in and set a nominee against the approver in that case.
Mm.
Okay.
Does it work with any ad basket supplier?
Yes, effectively. So I was trying to work out what you meant by ad basket, but yes,
It's all right.
if the online supplier has a basket concept, then the integration that we saw just now will work in a very similar way. We'll be able to pull that basket information through to automatically populate the purchase request. So Amazon's a great example because it's a very common supplier. Everyone is familiar with that interface. But any other online supplier that you're using where you'd like to link those purchases in, we can deliver that as well.
That's interesting.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?